I'm Layla.
Welcome back to our channel, Elementary My Dear,
where we make nutrition science easy for you to digest.
Today we're talking about what you should eat on your menstrual cycle.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss one of our videos. Periods. Many people have them. Most people don't like them. But very, very important process. Beautiful process, if you ask me.
It's a weirdly intricate process.
There are quite a few implications for nutrition.
There are 4 phases to the menstrual cycle. In a perfect textbook world, the menstrual cycle lasts about 28 days. The first phase of the menstrual cycle is called the follicular phase. It essentially starts on the first day of your period. Your body releases follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, and this basically tells your ovaries to start maturing some eggs. And this happens in the follicles of your ovaries. And at the same time, these follicles also release estrogen, and the estrogen prompts the uterus to start building up a nice cozy home for a potential fertilized egg.
After your ovaries have worked hard to develop this egg, your uterus has been working away at creating this nice little cozy home, it is time for the big moment. Ovulation. At the time of ovulation, luteinizing hormone comes down and it says to the follicle, let that egg go, and the egg comes out of the follicle and into the fallopian tube. The rest of the follicle actually doesn't go to waste. It kind of just chills there and then starts producing some progesterone.
Progesterone kind of maintains that endometrial lining in the uterus. So the egg happens to not get fertilized within a couple of days. The egg will dissolve. The follicles also kind of get a little upset because they've been working hard to keep producing that progesterone, and it's like,
well, screw this. If there's not going to be an egg being fertilized, why am I putting all this effort into this?
Not making any more progesterone. And when progesterone levels drop, the uterine lining is like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna start shedding, and menstruation starts. And that also starts the new cycle.
What's really interesting is I feel like on social media, we've actually been hearing a lot more talk of menstruation and the menstrual cycle, which for so long has been very, very taboo. People are taking the science behind the menstrual cycle, applying that to some pseudoscience principles to make recommendations that aren't necessarily based on fact. What we're going to do today is actually tell you what you should be eating during the luteal phase of your cycle.
The reason that we're especially concerned about the luteal phase is because that's actually when premenstrual syndrome tends to occur. It is estimated that 3 out of 4 menstruating people experience PMS. PMS is essentially the physical and emotional changes that might occur right before their menstrual period. Things like breast tenderness, mood swings, low mood, and fatigue.
It is so common, happens to a large group of the population for a large portion of their lives. I do think it is time that we open the conversation, talk about this syndrome seriously and through a scientific lens.
You might be wondering why PMS even happens. It certainly doesn't seem super fair. It's thought that it has to do with the changes on hormone levels that occur during that time. And turns out it's not really about the absolute amount of the hormones that are in your specific body. It's more about how things change during that time. First of all, progesterone levels are dropping during this time, and progesterone metabolites are actually an agonist to a neurotransmitter called GABA. GABA is kind of a mood stabilizer. The drop in progesterone levels, there's less activation of those GABA receptors, which might be kind of contributing to the low mood effect.
There is also an influence of progesterone on serotonin. During this period, levels of serotonin tend to decrease, and we kind of know of serotonin as the happiness hormone, it's the feel-good hormone. As you would see a decrease in serotonin, you can see a decrease in mood and mood stabilization.
A common thing that's reported with PMS is cravings. We do see that there might be changes in dietary intake throughout the menstrual cycle. The luteal phase around the PMS time, food intake might be higher. However, there seems to be a cultural component to it as well. So it's difficult to know what exactly is going on, whether there's an element of physiological changes or whether it's an element of maybe socialization or cultural context. However, there might be actual physiological changes that drive these cravings and higher food intake. Firstly, we find that energy expenditure is actually higher during this period, meaning that your metabolism is higher. You technically would need a little bit more calories.
And this is for a multitude of reasons. Your body is working hard, building up that nice cushiony home for the egg, and that takes a lot of resources from your body. All the preparation that your ovaries are doing takes quite a bit of energy. Your body's very smart. It might actually be compensating for the energy and nutrients that it's putting into that process by driving you to eat a little bit more.
Secondly, we find that insulin sensitivity is a little lower during this time as well, and it kind of makes sense that this might also prompt some hunger. Whether it is those actual physiological changes that are causing those cravings, or if maybe there's a cultural or psychological component to it, either way, it's okay to give yourself grace during this time and not beat yourself up if you happen to have these cravings or if you happen to eat a little bit more.
Given that premenstrual syndrome and many of the symptoms that come along with that are driven by physiological changes, what you have in your diet can actually influence how those symptoms occur and to what extent.
First, let's talk about things that you might want to limit during this time. First up is alcohol. Research suggests that alcohol may actually increase risk for PMS. Greater levels of alcohol intake is linked with worse symptoms of PMS. This is thought to be due to the alterations of sex steroid hormones and gonadotropin. So while it might be tempting to turn to that glass of wine when you're not feeling so hot, it may actually worsen symptoms. And it's interesting because I think a lot of times when people have trouble falling asleep, people have this idea that, oh, like a glass of wine will help me fall asleep. It might actually help you fall asleep, but it does tend to compromise sleep quality.
Interesting to note, it's not only alcohol consumption during PMS or during the luteal phase that can lead to PMS. It's actually alcohol consumption throughout the whole month or the whole menstrual cycle. I know it's easy for me to sit here and be like, everyone stop drinking and your PMS will go away. But limiting alcohol can actually reduce PMS symptoms.
More good news. Turns out caffeine can also worsen PMS symptoms. So life is just really unfair because obviously you're more tired during this time, so you probably want more coffee, but turns out coffee can actually make things worse. So everything just sucks.
Really, anything that you feel like you would want to do to manage your PMS, just like do the opposite of that. And just like with alcohol, the caffeine thing is not just during the luteal phase. It's
great.
It's all the time. But you might see some benefit if you cut back on caffeine during the luteal phase. It can help with the digestive issues. I've definitely experienced some PMS digestive issues. It could help with improving sleep quality, also with mood activation. If you do experience PMS, cutting back on caffeine, at least just during the luteal phase, may be a good way to counteract some of those negative symptoms.
So now let's talk about what you can do to help combat PMS. As you may expect, research evidence base is not as rich as we were hoping. There have been a few studies on curcumin supplementation, supplementing with 200 to 500 milligrams a day over 3 consecutive cycles seems to help with PMS, but also placebos have also shown to be almost just as effective.
But honestly, the effectiveness of both the placebo and the turmeric is really, really high. So I don't know what that means. Curcumin is one of the supplements that's been getting a lot of traction recently. We did a video on it probably about a year ago. There are a lot of studies that show that curcumin can help with inflammatory related conditions. PMS has some inflammatory components to it, so that might be one of the mechanisms by which curcumin supplementation works, if it does work.
Next up is calcium. PMS is actually associated with low intakes of calcium, and experiments have actually shown that calcium supplementation helps with PMS symptoms. We know that calcium is a nutrient of concern for those who menstruate, so we do encourage prioritizing calcium in your diet. Supplementation is also an option, although emerging research suggests that there could be risks that come with that.
The good thing is that calcium is found in high concentrations in foods that are generally beneficial for health. Obviously, there's dairy products, lots of those dark leafy greens, calcium set tofu, fish bones from canned fish. All of those are generally healthy foods. Getting enough calcium in your diet is something that's really important, especially for people who are menstruating. An added bonus is that potentially increasing your calcium levels might improve your PMS symptoms.
Next, let's talk about vitamin B6. There are experiments that suggest that supplementing with 100 milligrams a day of vitamin B6 can help and improve PMS symptoms. However, a meta-analysis that looked at all of these studies also said that a lot of these studies were of poor quality, so it's unclear what we can really gain from this. However, vitamin B6 is an important nutrient anyway and are found in a lot of nutrient-dense foods.
B6 is found in a lot of different foods such as certain fish, beef, grains, chickpeas. Just like we said with the calcium, it's another one of those win-win situations where having foods that are high in B6 are just part of a generally healthy diet and may help with preventing PMS. The thing is, here online when we watch these videos of people saying, during this phase you need to eat a yam or you need to eat carrots, It is quite compelling and interesting, but I think it puts a lot of pressure on people during an already hard time. What we actually do know about the menstrual cycle and nutrition, and specifically in the luteal phase, is that first, we should probably be giving ourselves grace if we are eating a little bit more, having cravings during this time, because your body is really smart and it's adapting to its needs. Also, if we are experiencing things like PMS, cutting out things like caffeine or alcohol may help preventing PMS, even if those are things that we are drawn to during that time, sadly. Also, there's not a lot that's known on specific things that you can eat to prevent PMS or to help during this phase of your menstrual cycle. And so anyone who is saying eat this specific food either is not using science or simplifying the science to a point where it's just like no longer true. There are some supplements that may show some benefits, but really we don't know a lot in the area yet. Potentially having foods that are high in B6 or high in calcium may be a good place to start, but we just don't know yet.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us your favorite home remedy for combating PMS, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Thanks for watching. Bye.